Thank you. So good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. I appreciate you joining for this session on digital skills. Thank you, Neil. What I'm going to talk today is about building digital capabilities, something that it's a topic that I'm quite passionate about. So my name is Chris Alder. I work for Deloitte. I've been at Deloitte for about 4 years. Previous to that, I worked for large outsourcers. In terms of my personal history, before that, I was a student in Bristol. Played rugby for Clifton out there for a few years, and met my wife there as well. Happily married with 2 kids now who are running me ragged, frankly. So today I'm going to talk about building digital capability and the approach to building digital capability. Although I work for Deloitte, this isn't a sales pitch. It's something I've been pushing and working on personally for a couple of years now. If anything, I'm looking to meet myself, people who are as passionate about this as I am, and I'm really looking to continue the conversation with people. We've got quite a good ecosystem of folks that I talk to regularly. So the only thing I would ask, please, if it occurs to you to do so, please add me on LinkedIn, because as I say, I'm very keen to continue the conversation. I appreciate the time, your time that you're giving today. I know that you want to get something out of this. So I'd like to understand what your roles are, please, and what made you join this session in the first place. Are you curious about a specific topic, for example? And what does building digital capability mean to your role? So Sarah, Neil, anybody else, if you can I just ask you just to put in a line about your role and what you're looking to get out of it today? I'm just curious. I think what I'm going to talk about is relevant to the entire industry at the moment. But I want to make sure if there are some specific points that need covering, I can tailor what I'm going to talk about to your own situations. So I'll just give you 30 seconds to see if you want to put anything in the chat. So whilst you do that, I'm not going to talk today about training. I'm going to talk about how you approach training, who we train and why we would train them. I'm going to talk about the importance of digital skills more broadly and make that case. Digital skills, I think if lockdown has shown us anything, is that digital skills are now life skills. I want to talk about the marketplace and the nature of the individual, and then bring that back to the work you do and how it will affect your role. I'm particularly looking at how we approach building new capability. So it's not a case of taking, for me, this isn't about taking a 20-year coder and teaching them a slightly new way of coding, because I think that path is probably well trodden. And the individual is probably comfortable enough with the digital marketplace to be able to affect that change themselves. I'm looking particularly at new entrants. How do you bring new entrants into the marketplace? How do you encourage them into the marketplace? Be that at the start of their careers or further down the path. I'm fortunate working for Deloitte, I consider, and working as part of an outsourcer, that we have these conversations with people a lot. Those that are looking to build capability. So how do you identify the resources you need in order to build a capability that doesn't exist at the moment? People are looking to transform capability. So Neil, sort of maximizing digital efficiency. I think there's a point there around sort of pipeline and how you ensure you've got that set of skills going forward. How do you maintain a relevant set of skills? How you continuously evolve the skills you've got available to you. So yes, building capability, transforming capability. I worked with a client who considered they had 1900 in their organization. They considered that in order to move forward to get the way they needed to be in 3 years' time, they would need to lose 500 and gain 500. And I think there's probably a better way of approaching that than that might sound. There's also a point about one-to-many. We know that there's pressure to release people. There's pressure to make redundancies and cut costs, and certainly the adoption of digital technology is driving that. But is there a better way of doing that? Is there a better way of approaching that? And perhaps, there's also the point about building that pipeline. You need to ensure, in order to ensure your company is going to be competitive going forward, you need to ensure you're maintaining that digital skills pipeline. So Sarah, hiring clients into digital roles. So I think we're going to talk about some examples that may be very relevant to you. And can you differentiate your approach? Does a new approach perhaps translate to a competitive edge? If you get people who are more engaged, if they're more productive, quicker, and will stay for longer, I believe that is competitive edge, and I think we can talk about various ways of doing that today. I also think there's a point about changing the narrative, both some of the firms who work with Deloitte themselves. When I was an outsourcer, there is reputational damage in the paper. There is unions you have to work with, and also I think there's a social responsibility to employers to perhaps be behaving in the best possible way for the individuals now. So let's talk about the wider situation to begin with. So anybody displaced at the moment, be it as part of the turnover resulting from COVID or from the increased use of automation, are going to try and re-enter a workplace that will look and feel very different from the one they left. It's changing all the time. It's going to be smaller, it's becoming more competitive, and there'll be a greater focus on digital skills. The recent lockdowns demonstrated, as I said, that those digital skills equate to social inclusion. There's an urgent need to develop and maintain these skills broadly, regardless of employment, to prevent a generation becoming digitally lost. The current approach to skills development, and in particular digital skills development, has become fragmented. There's been investment from government, employers, the education sector, but there's a patchwork of solutions that makes the outcome, for me, very hard to navigate for an individual. I think there's an opportunity to approach this in a different way and establish digital learning pathways that are more meaningful to the individual. A change of approach that I think would deliver enormous benefits for employers and individuals alike. To me, individual learners are going to feel far more confident in investing their time and energy in reskilling on a tailored pathway that is based on them as an individual. Employers would benefit not only from a larger pool to recruit from, but the ability to better identify individuals with the skills they're looking for. So the emergence of digital technology, just bear with me a second, I've got a slide ahead. The emergence of digital technology such as artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, augmented and virtual reality have brought us into the fourth industrial revolution and creating a new division of labour between humans, algorithms and machines. The conversations about how to prepare the UK workforce for this change were already well underway prior to COVID-19, but this public health crisis and the economic disruption that we're experiencing and seeing in the news on a day-to-day basis has thrown into sharp relief the vulnerabilities that exist within certain sectors. In this context, in order for your firms to remain competitive and the firms that you support to remain competitive, it's critical to retain strength and innovation and to continue to develop the skills your industry needs and convert that into revenue growth. It's critical that we are able to develop and maintain that pipeline of digital skills. In order to do this, I think we need to look at how we continually pivot those at risk of leaving the workforce or those looking to enter the workforce into digital roles in areas with relevant skills, growth potential, and longevity. So let's look at some numbers here. The new digital economy will have a profound effect on the jobs marketplace. In their paper from a few years ago, Osborne and Frey suggested that 35% of the existing workforce, which is about 11 million UK jobs, will be automated by the end of the decade. Conversely, Deloitte themselves forecast the need for an additional 4.5 million new jobs created over the same time frame. But those statistics don't tell the full story. The entire UK workforce will be impacted by digital technology. This will cause every role to evolve over time, our roles to evolve over time, which will take the form of new tools, software, and ways of working. Much of the current workforce, our own jobs, we will need to retrain in those jobs alongside those entering the marketplace for the first time. According to the World Economic Forum, 133 million new roles may emerge globally by 2022 in the next 24 months. Some of those roles will be created in country and met with local resource. Some of those roles will be genuinely global and will be delivered from where the skills are available. The challenge is not just to meet the demand side requirements from UK companies, but also position the UK to take a share of the global digital marketplace. In the various conversations I've been having over the last 18 months or so about this, I was talking to a chap who their firm had taken on a challenge from a major bank to develop an app that would encourage young people to get into banking and to open accounts and be more engaged with their banking. And they ran a competition with a £50,000 prize, and that prize was won by a young lady working out of her bedroom in Indonesia, which I think is a very interesting challenge to consider. It's a very interesting situation to consider. I wonder to the extent that competitions run by banks in Indonesia are won by people working out of their bedrooms in the UK. What is the implication of that for us? To me, this all points to a challenge for your firms to remain competitive, of course. There was a parliamentary inquiry that warned about a digital skills crisis. 93% of UK tech companies say that the scarcity of digital skills, and I'm sure for all of you, the scarcity of digital skills will affect your commercial operation. The European Commission has predicted that 756,000 professional ICT jobs will be unfilled this year across Europe, which further underscores the need for the UK to see digital skills as a priority and for talent as well as economic competitiveness. I think our continued success, your continued success, will rest on the ability of businesses and organizations, educators and government to anticipate correctly the future skills requirements and provide the right training and education. These requirements will continue to evolve as technologies emerge, and the training and education provided will need to be flexible enough to be responsive to this challenge. Deloitte, Deloitte did a human capital trends report, and that showed that 75% of executives, so the people that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, believe digital is fundamentally changing their organization, but only a quarter of them believe their talent pool has the capability to deliver against that strategy. So they're either going to need, to develop these skills or bring them into the organization. Tech UK, one of the firms we work with, their polling has also revealed that about 3/4 of business leaders believe that there will be a greater reliance on digital as the economy recovers. What we're seeing, what I'm sure you all are seeing, and looking at some of the cases that you put in there, you put in the chat window, there is an increasing demand for a smaller pool of skills. Now, the effect this has for you is it's going to drive up salaries. It's going to encourage those with premium skills to move jobs more often. It's going to increase the investment required to recruit and the timescales too. And I think the sort of wrinkle in there is perhaps firms are going to make a much greater effort to retain people as well, which is also going to cause problems for recruitment. The resultant impact of these factors will be disruptive for all of us, and are going to affect the ability of our organizations to compete. This is a challenge for more than just technical companies, because industries such as sales, manufacturing, law, accounting, and finance are all increasingly reliant on technology platforms and digital skills. As we like to say at Deloitte, all companies are technology companies now. You look at you've got the biggest taxi firm in the world that doesn't own any taxis, the biggest hotel firm in the world that doesn't own any hotels. It's all about technology. So the supply of technical skills is required in a market where these skills are becoming obsolete at an accelerating rate. So GitHub say that their software engineers are going to have to retrain every 12 to 18 months. The half-life of the digital skills we're trying to recruit is increasingly short. The ability for you all to create and maintain your own pipeline of skills, understand how to do it in a context where development and succession plans are changing rapidly, I believe that is going to become a competitive differentiator, and conversely, it's going to cause things to deteriorate if you're unable to do this. So there's a direct need for technical skills, but the ability to adapt to disruptive change that we're seeing is more than just the availability of digital skills. I think the ability of an individual to continuously adapt going forward is a function of their softer human skills, and actually will become a skill in itself. So let's look at this. Sorry, this is a slide I flipped onto earlier. Let's look at this on the individual level and these skills that we're trying to build. So we know that rapid advances in technology are fundamentally changing how work is done. This is creating a great deal of uncertainty about which one of today's jobs will continue to exist in the future. The predictions of technology disrupting entire industries, you look at, so I referenced Airbnb and Uber there, workers are going to need the ability to move into different types of jobs at different points in their career, retrain quickly and apply their underlying transferable or more human skills into different contexts. Changes to working age limits are going to compound this. Whilst there's likely to be significant changes to the role of the workforce and evolving need for digital skills, there is one constant, which is the value of transferable, uniquely human skills, which oddly enough are the ones that are most difficult to automate. Deloitte's own analysis showed that workers with the strongest transferable skills were the best indicator of resilience in the face of changing labour markets. So the sort of things I'm talking about, for example, communication, so the ability to listen, express ideas effectively in different contexts, the ability to influence, strategic, the ability to exercise judgment, leadership, and creativity to decide the way forward in complex environments, or analytical, the ability to acquire new knowledge, process information, and draw accurate conclusions, and so on, empathy and others, problem solving, structured thinking, those underlying human skills that you take with you, that you have innately with you. Until I started doing this, if I look at my own journey, I was always into maths and sciences, A-levels, double maths, physics, chemistry, engineering degree at Bristol University, and then went into IT. But what's been consistent about me is I've always been solving problems. The nature of those problems has changed, the size and scale of those problems has changed, and the complexity has changed. But it's essentially still solving problems. And that was the theme, which, although I've changed jobs and moved around, that is the theme. Wherever I go, I'm always looking to solve the problem. So to be competitive, to remain competitive, for all of you to continue to contribute in the digital economy, we need to create a nimble workforce with strength in these transferable skills and a confident and adaptable mindset, and then match them with the technical skills that best exploit those transferable skills, which is the right digital training for the right person and when the job's available at the right time. This needs to be able to happen quickly. We need to be able to affect this quickly and repeatedly, which will become critical to ensuring a continuously productive workforce that builds experience as they move from role to role. We need to find a way of consistently doing this, consistently identifying and developing those transferable skills, and then providing the relevant in-demand digital skills to match people, to match the people and the aptitude to the right in-demand jobs. We also need to be able to do this at scale. So I think there's a point around pipeline, but I also think there's a point around scale here. The key is to be able to identify the human skills. And once those are identified, they can be matched with the technical skills that best exploit the skills quickly and repeatedly. The resultant picture is of an individual without academic qualifications and a benchmark assessment of the human skills. So, how do you do that? How do you identify their skills? But create that benchmark assessment of the human skills. We know what their academic qualifications are. We can add the digital skills and retrain as they move from role to role, gaining experience as they do so. If you are able to identify the human skills in your workforce, you're able to reverse engineer this. For example, go and look for empathy. We recruit Deloitte about 450 odd graduates a year. Last year, pre-COVID, we take the graduates away in September last year to the Cotswolds, and I watched a group all outside on an area about the size of a cricket pitch doing various tasks in teams with ropes and planks and bouncy balls and all the sorts of things you might expect. And what occurred to me is I was looking at a group of 440 young, promising graduates. If you come to me and you say, well, Chris, look, I need people that have got a degree in chemistry. I need people to enter a certain university. I need people who've got a 2-1 or above. I need people that have certain A-levels. I would have been able to tell you all of those things almost immediately. We have all that data available to us. But if you'd have come to us and said, look, I need people with very strong empathy. I need people who are problem solvers. I need people who are structured thinkers. I need your best negotiators. I wouldn't have been able to tell you. We hadn't assessed it. And the thing that occurs to me is, why would we expect people to be successful in roles if we hadn't assessed their underlying human capabilities? If we've only tested traditional academic measures, I don't get why you would expect them to be good at something just because you'd identified and put them in that role. So could you, for example, if you want to identify some people who are looking to code, instead of simply running a coding training course, could you go out and look for the best problem solvers and structured thinkers? I don't know if you remember, for those of you seen the Alan Turing movie that Dominic Cumberbatch was in a few years ago. What struck me was when they recruited there, the interview was the crossword that he asked everybody to do. And on the grounds that if you could do a crossword, then you that underlying skill was transferable into code breaking. What also occurred to me was I wonder how many firms would actually, these days, with the current approach that we take, have recruited Alan Turing. I do think it's interesting we almost restrict ourselves to the pool that we recruit from before we start. And is that really the right thing to do? Should we be able to go out to those from non-traditional learning backgrounds and identify the skills we're actually looking for and layer those digital skills over the top? Is that a more productive way of doing it than perhaps restricting ourselves to those that have only come through a traditional learning background? It's a debate we have in the firm. If I look at two areas that we've recruited, one is in Northern Ireland, where we talk about bringing in call it an academy, a group of people specifically to learn digital skills, but we put the requirement on them that they had to have a 2-1 or greater at university. And we had quite an emotional discussion about why, if you were looking to people to be very good coders, good developers, why would the fact that they had a 2-1 or not make any difference? I think it's an extremely important point, and one that should be more prevalent in what we do on a day-to-day basis. So let's look at the training now. So we've talked about the individual and perhaps how they might be thinking and how we might approach them better. What about the training, which is the challenge that the individual faces if we want them to be productive when they join our firm, or if we want them to have developed those digital skills and be willing to do so? If you're looking to repurpose somebody within your firm, if you expect them to perhaps take the initiative and do this and apply for roles, what challenge do they face? To me, the current approach is at best a patchwork of solutions. I think if you Google Digital Skills UK, last time I did that, there are 138 million responses. I think what you've got is on the left-hand side of that program, a sort of bewildering array. How do you know what to do? There's a huge volume of digital training available. There's some excellent work being done by organizations such as the Institute of Coding, so accreditors. There's the Chartered Institute of IT, which is BCS. That complements training material provided by businesses such as BT, Google, Cisco, IBM, and others. But the sheer volume of training to me is a barrier to developing the digital skills in itself. There are variations in style, value, quality, onward application, timescales, completion, even the longevity of the qualification and cost. It makes it difficult for the uninitiated to understand where to focus their time. I think in addition, there's often a disconnect between training and an available role. I see a lot of people do training and never use it again. I always struggle. We did a lot of Six Sigma training in the late 90s and early zeros. And I never saw anybody follow through on a Six Sigma project. I know I've seen some that are very good, that went very well. But virtually everybody I saw that went through Six Sigma training never actually followed through and delivered a Six Sigma project. So the combination of these factors can increase the time between initial engagement on a digital journey and the ability to be productive, potentially causing an individual to miss out on an opportunity or to be unable to gain full benefit from the training. I think to me, there's a need to move the situation to the right-hand side of this diagram. There's a need to consolidate the training material relevant to an employment opportunity into a single structured pathway and signpost the material in a way that is meaningful to the individual and supports the end-to-end digital journey. So if I understand the individual and I understand the skills required from that individual, how do I encourage them to take that step? How do I encourage the individual on that training pathway in a way that is meaningful to them? So this is the vision that I have. This is my sort of end-to-end digital journey. I think it starts on the left-hand side with your academic qualifications. Incidentally, I think one of the reasons that this, I probably should have said at the beginning, one of the reasons I think we need to focus on the individual is because it's very difficult if you focus on the technology. If you ask people, do you want to be a coder? I'm not sure how they're supposed to answer that question. If you go to a room of 100 people and say, how many of you want to learn to code? We were joking with the Institute of Coding. I hope you won't mind anybody saying this, but it's a conversation we've had with Rashid Huritzi, the Institute of Coding. We were joking that the name, the Institute of Coding, may be a barrier in itself. Who wants to wants to join an institute and who, is the word coding a warm, fuzzy word that people might want to investigate? Even the wording, I think, sometimes that we use is a barrier. If you've got somebody that is at risk of redundancy, if somebody is nervous about entering the digital marketplace, instead of talking about the technologies, we should be talking about the individual, to the individual, about themselves, and sort of walking them down this path based upon a conversation about them, not a conversation about your firm or your role. Again, it's something I've talked to Deloitte about. We often advertise, come work for Deloitte, but is that the way to do it? If you didn't know what Deloitte did, why would that be attractive to you if you were leafing through a magazine or flicking through a website? So for me, the journey starts with being able to identify the individual's capabilities. And then we need to look for a role that makes best use of those capabilities. And the journey ends with the individual developing the competence to deliver a recognizable digital outcome within that role. So the process I'm advocating that you could use would become a broker for a digital skills pipeline, able to connect individuals with the relevant digital training. I believe you'll get a better outcome and a better engagement from the individual by focusing on that digital journey and the outcome of it rather than the training in itself. So the knowledge that you're giving somebody, the digital skills, becomes a means to achieving the outcome rather than the goal. We talk about getting people to fall in love with the problem. For example, if you can identify a structured thinker, so if your analysis in step 1 identifies a structured thinker who's a good communicator, and you compare them with an opportunity to utilize these capabilities, for example, to help optimize bus routes in a major city, to look at sustainable salmon fishing, and then teach them the digital skill as like the principle, for example, of big data analytics, that becomes a means to an end. So rather than saying to somebody, do you want to be a data scientist? Shouldn't we be saying to them, because you are a problem solver and structured thinker, I think you'd be really interested in looking at this problem, like sustainable salmon fishing in Scotland. Get people, we talk about getting people to fall in love with the problem. If we're talking to them and selling it that way, I think you're going to get a better engagement. I think you're going to get somebody that's more productive, more willing to be involved, and perhaps I think there'll be longevity to it. Rather than saying to somebody, I want to teach you to be a data scientist, and when you become a data scientist, I'm going to give you a role. I'm not sure that, I don't know why we think that would be more than just averagely successful. I think if we are able to do this, if we're able to understand human capabilities, if we're able to identify how best to apply those digital capabilities and then put the skills in the middle, I think the employer would get the right person with the right skills, and the individual would enter the digital marketplace through an efficient path into a job in which they can excel that they might not even have considered in the first place. So as I say, if I'm talking to somebody, if I'm talking to a new graduate and I say, look, or somebody, we talk to people in the Prince's Trust, somebody from a non-traditional learning pathway, and say, look, you have fantastic empathy. You may not have ever used a laptop before, but we are looking to develop a website that will encourage people to sign up for a new benefit, and those people may be reluctant to do so. So how would you encourage them to do that? How would you encourage them? How would you design something that would encourage people to sign up for a benefit? Now, if they can fall in love with the problem, then teaching them aspects of front-end developing or the structure of how we would do user research, that is the means to the end, not the end in itself. But if you can get people along that path, talking to them about themselves because of your empathy, we think you would be good at this. Suddenly they are part of that digital marketplace. They have digital skills that are relevant and perhaps slightly future-proofed, and they've got that confidence to actually be productive, and you have managed to build your own pipeline from nothing. So I talked about this academy that we recruited in Belfast and the requirement for a 2-1. We also recruited a group into Bristol itself that were from non-traditional learning backgrounds. So we had people from retail, we had people from nursing, and we talked about the opportunity to come and work in a digital environment. We brought a group of people in that had no training, and within 6 weeks, they were able to build websites on AWS, so with a set of training, which meant they were digitally productive. So if skills are declining at a faster and faster rate, you need to be productive quicker. So to bring somebody in that has the right capabilities, to then provide those skills that allows them to be productive within a matter of 6 to 8 weeks. Now, this isn't a panacea. It's not going to give you a subject matter expert. What it will give you, though, is a section of your recruitment that where you are generating your own pipeline and you have control of it. I think there's also a point here around if you're looking to transform an organization. So something we do at Deloitte, we look at the ServiceNow HR module. If you're looking to automate HR processes, so we onboarded because of the challenges of COVID. We onboarded our graduates this year via a portal, via mobile. So we are automating those HR processes. If we're freeing people up from HR, we talk about sort of the ability to contribute at a higher level and add more value and those sorts of things. But the danger is for those people that they would look around for another HR role perhaps and not find it. They might look around in the firm and say, well, there are no HR roles in the firm, therefore I need to exit. But why not take the empathy? Why not that they use in HR? Why not take perhaps the creativeness, the willingness to work with people, the enjoyment of working with people and delivering sort of outcomes for individuals, and translate that into potentially digital skills? So, as I say, front-end developers, or use that creativity in HR perhaps to look at designing sites. I think there's all sorts of digital skills. It's not all around being good on a laptop. Some of it's around user research, business analyst, those sorts of roles. So our ability to identify those transferable and human skills allows you to create a sort of Hogwarts sorting hat that says, because of your aptitudes, we think you might be more interested in walking down this digital path, which would lead to these types of digital roles, which would allow you to do these things, rather than just that sort of bewildering array I talked about to begin with, to say, well, look, the firm's recruiting all these roles. Which ones do you want to go for? But it's got to be more productive. If you can repurpose people within your firm into those digital roles, allows you to retain them. I think it's a much better story. You're retaining the experience that we talked about. You're retaining the networks that people have got. And you're finding, because you're mining those aptitudes, I think you're actually more likely to be successful by identifying the aptitudes first and then pairing them with the digital skills rather than just going looking for the digital skills. So the employers, let me just run through. So what does that give the, if I look at the individual and just sort of in conclusion, really, if I think about somebody that is going to be made redundant, they have very limited resources available to them to invest in education training, and are doing so in a very competitive landscape. A large number of redundancies are anticipated to come out of lockdown, and there will be funds for retraining. The decision to undertake a particular course is critical and represents a one-off opportunity of both money and time. But there's a lot of risk attached with that if the course doesn't lead to a clear or rewarding employment opportunity. So reskilling needs to be flexible. The reskilling and training challenges that I'm asking you to provide, it needs to be flexible, and there needs to be a clear and predictable pathway to future job opportunities. The benefit of this approach, of this pathway that's built around the individual that identifies the necessary skills to that digital outcome, I think it's going to give those individuals confidence, and it's going to allow you to build your own pipeline that you're going to have control of, and to say that perhaps circumvent some of those challenges of recruiting from a marketplace where you really are perhaps at the mercy of you're competing for the same digital skills with a lot of other employers. So using human capabilities at that starting point, I think it's going to be more inclusive and more attractive to a greater proportion of individuals. If I look at you as employers and with firms to run and challenges to face, the digital skills gap is expected to cost the UK economy about 63 billion a year, which is a figure that Tech UK came up with. If we had a process that provides this scalable way of identifying resources, allowing individuals to develop the skills necessary for the jobs available, I think the flexibility and agility of a process like this would add new pathways and allow us to create new job roles that can be added to and augmented by employers over a period of time. The variety of learning and development material available today, it often leaves employers unable to identify those who have the right skills at the right level. So as I say, I think the approach sometimes just focusing on digital skills and training, it's not going to give you fully what you need. I think that layered approach, where perhaps you can build your base, you can build a new capability, using a more tailored approach, and then you combine that with subject matter experts, people brought in externally. Perhaps a more creative, holistic sourcing approach is the way forward. So that's the process that I'm advocating for. So identifying those human skills and then building the training around the individuals. I think it plays into building capabilities to begin with, bringing people into the marketplace. I think it plays for those large transformations. And I also think there's an aspect here where we're looking to repurpose the workforce, where we're releasing people back into the marketplace. I think there's a better way of doing it, of applying those funds that we give people instead of just saying, look, go away and find some training. I think there's a better way of saying, actually, and it's a discussion we had for a couple of firms on the M4, where we identified a manufacturer that were looking to lay people off, and somebody else that was looking to recruit digital roles. And what we tried to do is pair the two and say, look, just because you're not looking to recruit engineers from a car plant doesn't mean that there aren't skills there that you could identify, and perhaps that's a more productive way of looking at it. So I'd really ask now, and I was hoping that we'd be able to have a discussion, but apparently we need to work with the chat. So can I just ask for your comments on that, or any questions? Has anybody got any questions to talk about, any particular ideas that they've got? And I'll just give you a couple of minutes just to type things into the window. But any suggestions on how perhaps this might be applied, or any questions on the approach? So if I, Sarah, I'd sort of pick up on your role. Our clients, I think human capability is interesting, Sarah. And again, this isn't a sales pitch. I just talk about what we did. We didn't do this to develop a market offering. I did this with some colleagues because it's something we were interested in. What we developed was a set of 45 questions that identified across 18 capabilities. And what we did was ask people questions about themselves. There weren't pass or fail questions. They were which sort of the questions to the form of what of this is more, which of these statements best describes you. And there were things like, for example, I like working as part of a team. I like working to deadlines, or I prefer being given a task to work on my own. And we built a set of questions that identified against 18 capabilities. So we started with the capabilities and said, look, if we wanted somebody with empathy, how would we identify that? And we asked questions like, I enjoy working with other people. I enjoy sitting down. So made these statements. I enjoy sitting down with people and understanding the background. And we asked people to identify the statements which best represented the way they enjoyed working. So I enjoy solving problems. I enjoy working with deadlines. I enjoy working as part of a team. I enjoy leading a team. I enjoy working within a structured environment. And we sat down and we mapped, well, if we wanted people for certain roles, which statements would we like them to have made? And essentially that was the process around it. And we iterated it multiple times, and was a sort of sniff test about yeah, that seems right. If we were going to recruit somebody, say, to be a front-end developer or a business analyst, if we had this set of statements, which ones would we like them to have chosen? I'm very happy to, if you want to have a chat offline, I'll flick onto my email address at the bottom left there. Very happy to sort of talk you through what we did and just show you it on a screen share. But it presented just a very useful challenge and kicked off an interesting thought process about, well, what do you want? How would you want people to describe their roles? And we put all those statements down. We allowed people to pick them out. But the important point was it wasn't a pass or fail. We set it up in a situation where we were trying to find out about the individual. So it wasn't to allow an individual to game it, to say, I think they're looking for this, so I'm going to give you these answers. It did start with the individual because we knew that we could pair them to roles. And in cases we've worked with, in some cases we were looking to pair people internally. In some cases because the employer felt it was more socially responsible, we looked at the idea of identifying external roles. And in some cases, if you looked at a large redundancy in a firm, you could perhaps look at all the roles that were being recruited in an area. So you could pair a workforce and sort of sift a workforce to identify the various roles available in the digital and the human capabilities that might be required for those roles. And then, as I say, if you've identified the human capabilities that an employer is looking for, and you know the role that they're looking to hire, then to me the training is reasonably straightforward with an intended digital outcome. And I think if you're doing that, if an employer is doing that, then you can layer in your own. We at Deloitte, we bring a lot of graduates in, and then we teach them about quality and what it means to be part of the firm and all those sorts of things. I think you layer that training in so that what you do is bring in somebody with the right human capabilities, the right digital skills, and the awareness of the firm. And I think that all pairs together. I think that is a far more successful package than something that just looks for academic flags, more traditional academic flags. So thank you for the question, Sarah. Anything from anybody else? Okay, I'll just give it another 30 seconds or so to see if anybody wants to type another question in. But as I say, this is a topic I'm very passionate about. So please, if you want to continue the conversation, do please add me on LinkedIn. I'm very, very keen to continue talking about it. And we've developed a bit of an ecosystem of people who are interested in that sort of building digital capabilities and how you go about doing it, how you retrain and so on. We do work with actually the University of Western England and a number of others, the Institute of Coding, say Tech UK, who will continue to look at how we face this challenge, and particularly post-COVID, I think it's going to be extremely relevant. Okay. Right, in that case, I think we'll pull it to a close. We'll give you a few minutes back. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time. I appreciate you joining. I hope you enjoyed being part of the conversation, and please urge you to continue it in the marketplace. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Sarah. Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.